Hello and welcome to the latest of our Watching Brief special reports. This one is about the launch of the UK general election. So apologies to any Watching Brief viewers who are outside of the British Isles. This might seem a little bit parochial, although actually the way heritage is handled, the way heritage people respond to political situations and so on, I think there are carryovers into other countries, other jurisdictions, and of course across the Atlantic there's another big general election later on this year in November, when the United States elects, among other political office holders, a new president. So a general election is really important because it's the one time when the politicians who handle policy towards things like development, what can be built where, who hold the purse strings for higher education and either tell universities to go out and fund themselves or find the money to subsidize university courses and have arguments about whether courses have value or not. And that's certainly been an issue with archaeology over the years. So most of the time things happen behind closed doors in Whitehall, in Westminster. A general election is the one time when the people making those decisions have to be out in the open, because if they don't get votes, they don't get to keep their jobs. And this particular watching brief really is to say one or two things. First is about getting involved, and the second is why we think you should get involved. A couple of weeks ago, the Heritage Alliance, which is the British umbrella body for groups in the heritage sector, and that's not just archaeologists, that's museums, galleries, charities, historic buildings, and so on, published a report called On the Brink. It is 70 odd pages of quite closely written, closely evidenced reportage on a sector that is in real trouble. Obviously, the title On the Brink is quite provocative. It talks about shortages, it talks about demoralized workforces, it talks about spiraling costs but diminishing revenue streams. It talks about short-term planning leading to long-term problems. We'll link to it below the line on the YouTube version, and you'll see you'll see illustrated and the web address on the TikTok version of this report. But it is really required reading for anybody in archaeology and heritage. It is also a manifesto for those politicians. Now, it was published before Prime Minister Sunak announced the general election this week, but the timing I don't think is any coincidence, because it is really written as a to-do list for an incoming government, where the Heritage Alliance is saying basically deal with these issues, short-term, medium-term, long-term, or you are dealing with a sector that contributes billions to the UK economy suddenly being in real trouble. So that's the reason why we at the Watching Brief at ArchaeoSoup, at the Pipeline News website, are suggesting to you that this general election, you need to get involved, at the very least as a voter, and possibly in a way that's more active as those politicians from whatever party come asking for your vote. Now, we are not going to endorse the political party. This isn't about saying go and vote for Starmer, vote for Sunak, vote for the Greens or whatever. It's about getting involved so that the politicians who do get elected from whatever party have heritage and archaeology at least on the periphery of their vision, if not more central. And Lord knows there are many, many issues that the country faces in education, in the health service, in transport infrastructure, pollution in rivers, sewage discharges into our World Heritage sites in the Lake District, and so on and so on and so on. No one is suggesting that heritage is the only issue and people will make a decision based on heritage issues alone, but there are so many linkages particularly in the environmental sector, that we think that this is a really important general election, and it's one where it's really, really important to have the voice of archaeologists and heritage people heard. Now, the Electoral Commission, which is the British body which oversees general elections, has published a very useful page of information about what is required for you to take part as a voter. It's about and what, particularly this time around, what you need to have with you in terms of photo ID, because this is the first general election in UK where to get a vote you have to show photo ID at the polling station. We'll link to the page, but the important dates are really very simple to remember. You've got until 1 minute to midnight on the 18th of June to register for a vote if you're not already on the electoral register. The deadline for applying for a postal vote, if you know you're going to be working away from base on polling day, which is the 4th of July, is 5 o'clock on Wednesday, the 19th of June. You can do it online and you can do it through your local authority. But if you want a postal vote, you have to apply for it by the 19th of June. If you want somebody to vote on your behalf, what's called a proxy vote, you have until 5 o'clock on the 26th of June to ask for that. And I talked about photo ID. The Electoral Commission has a list of the photo ID that's acceptable at polling stations, includes things like passports and driving licenses and so on. But if you don't have any of those, you can get a free, what's called a voter authority certificate from your local authority. But again, you have to apply for that in advance, and the deadline for that is 5 o'clock on Wednesday, the 26th of June. Finally, polling day itself. Polling takes place between 7 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night on Thursday, the 4th of July. So check out those dates, check you have your photo ID, check that you have a postal vote if you're going to be away from your normal voting place, your normal polling station on the 4th of July. And please, please, please register to vote and then go out and vote. Now, here on the watching brief, we're going to be talking in detail actually about the On the Brink report in our next full-length watching brief. We are also going to be covering the general election and issues related, heritage-related issues, right the way through till polling day and afterwards when the new government is formed, whoever forms it. Now, you can help us with that. We're planning a number of things, including questionable archaeology, which is a sort of any questions about archaeological issues in the light of a general election and archaeology and heritage policy. We are also asking you, if you are an archaeologist who is standing for office or an archaeologist who is an activist for any political party standing for office, please tell us about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and how your links to archaeology and heritage are playing into any campaign that you're running for the general election. And also, if you have somebody knocking on the door saying, vote for me, whatever party it is, and you ask them about a heritage issue, maybe a heritage issue nationally, like paying conditions in developer-funded archaeology, maybe about a local issue. If you ask them the question and they give you a response, tell us about it, because we want to make this two-way. We want to make sure that somehow or other archaeology and heritage are there in the general election. Our DMs are open. Our email addresses are available. Let us know what's going on out there on the ground, whether archaeology is cutting through in any way at all. And if it's not, why not, and what you think we could possibly do to make sure that when that new government is formed on the 5th of July, that our voices, the sector's voices, are there in some form or another. And as I said, whoever you vote for, register to vote and then go out and vote on the 4th of July. That's it for now. We'll be talking about the On the Brink report next time. See you soon. Bye-bye.